Hi guys, in this video I thought I'd have a go at making a cartoony style French Bulldog cake, although I'm not sure if I made it look a little bit like a cat. So I'm going to start with some chocolate cakes, and it's up to you what size you want to use. Depends on if you want a bigger or smaller cake. I think mine were about 8 inches. And they're quite thin layers of my cakes, so I've just put a bit of chocolate buttercream between each layer. I've stuck them near the bottom of my cake board. Now my cake board's quite small. I could have really done with going a little bit bigger. So I'm going to carve a bit of cake off the bottom, and then just a little bit off either side at the top. Just going to mark where I want my nose to go. And then I've used my offcuts from the bottom to stick a piece on at the nose. I'm just going to trim around that so it's slightly rounded. A little triangle at the bottom, that nose at the bottom. And then I've gone around kind of all the way around the top edge and cut a little bit off just to curve the top of my cake. And I'll do the same on the nose. And I'm using a chocolate ganache to cover my actual cake. You can use chocolate buttercream if you prefer. It's just the ganache sets a little bit firmer for me so I can press a little bit harder with my icing. So once you've got the ganache as smooth as you can and you've given it sort of half an hour or so to set, I'm going to use some modelling chocolate. You can use fondant, but I had some modelling chocolate to hand and it tastes nicer. I've just added a little piece, can you see, above my nose, and then just a little bit kind of where your eyebrow area would be. And a little teardrop just on my chin area. And I've got some grey fondant. I'll put links in the description box to everything that I've used. So just rolled this big enough to go over the face and the board. And I'm just going to give it a gentle rub with my hands just to smooth it off. I've rubbed it down on the cake board as well slightly. I'm going to pull off all the bits that go beyond my board. So I'm just rubbing the edge thin with my cake smoother. So it's kind of tearing off the edge there of my board. I'm just going to try and go a little bit deeper in my eyes. So I've got a rolling pin handle. You can use something different, but the rolling pin handle fits perfectly for those eye sockets. Go a little bit deeper just above my nose, and maybe a tiny bit just above like my little eyebrow area. Let's go deeper in the middle. So this time I'm using my Dresden tool, the pointy end, and then we're just going to put some little hairlines in. Now, if you prefer not to, you don't have to put all these little hairlines in. I just thought it would be a nice little extra to add the lines. Now, it is boring adding the lines, but altogether this cake took me about 2 hours to decorate. So in total, it's probably not that long compared to a lot of the cakes that I do make. So we've put a little line at the top of where we're going to put our nose, and then I'm going to put some more little hairlines in. I'm going to keep them short little hairs. Let's draw the bottom of my nose in. So I'm just pushing into my fondant. Let's put some little nostrils in. Just using, again, the end of my Dresden tool. Let's see if we can push these round at a little bit of an angle, like that. Then I'll keep putting some more little tiny lines in. So I've got a bit of texture on the surface. We're not aiming for really realistic because I'm going to give it super big eyes. So I've got some white fondant, just roll into a rough little disc. So you'll see I've got a ball that I started with and I just squish it down. Just make sure the second one's the same size as the first. Just push that into my eye socket. And I've got a little circle cutter that I'm going to use for my pupil. So I've rolled out, I've just used the grey to start with and we'll change the colour later. And then it's up to you if you want it looking up or down or whichever direction. But push it firmly in place once you've decided. Put a smaller circle of black fondant in the middle of that grey. Just give it a good press down. If it doesn't stick, you can put a bit of water down to hold it in place. Then I've cut a big circle. We've cut it in half and we're going to give it some eyelids. So again, just push this down. So it always looks a little bit dopier looking when I give it eyelids. And we've got a nice thin bit of black fondant that's just going to go across the edge of our eyelid. Just using a small round cutter, I cut 2 circles in white. So we'll stick that in each eye so it looks like light reflecting in our eye. I'm going to go back to doing a little bit more hair all over the face. And you can see I get bored very quickly of doing the hair. So I'm going to move on to painting my eyes. So I've got a little bit of chestnut brown food colouring. Just painting this on with a thin brush and a little bit of water. And if you want to go any darker, you can use a little bit of dark brown. If you want to deepen around the eye socket, dilute it quite a bit. And we can just slip it just around the edge of the eye and the eyelid, just to give us a bit of shading. Or if you prefer, you can do that in powders. If you're doing it in powder, wait till the end. It's just darken near the top of that eye so it looks like it's shadowed under the eyelid. We'll do the same with the other eye. I think these eyelashes are just a bit long for what I want, so I'm going to cut the end off. Now ears, I kind of rolled the teardrop shape twice and then just rolled it out with my rolling pin. They're quite thick, are these. If your fondant feels very soft, add a little bit of Tylose to firm it up. I'll roll the rolling pin, can you see, across the middle, so it gives me a bit thinner so I can cup it together there. Cut a little bit off the bottom of each ear and let's work out whereabouts they're going to go. Can you see the inside edge of each ear? It's just been folded over slightly and I'm going to push that tight against my face. Now it still looks a little bit cat-like, so I should maybe change the ears slightly. So add a little bit of my leftover grey fondant just under the head so it looks like a bit of a body. Again, we can put some hairlines on this. You see I completely covered the face in those tiny hairlines as well. I'm not worried about the body meeting the head because it's going to have a little bow on later. Let's add some hairlines now to my ears. Now it's very flat looking at the moment, so we need to add a bit of colour. So I've got some dark brown food colour. It's a dust that I'm using now. It's an edible one. We'll just put a little bit of shading on with that. And then I've also got a pink food colour. Again, the dust, using a dry brush. We're just going to brush some of this into the middle of each ear. And then I'm going to swap back to my brown. We'll go over any areas we want to look a little bit darker, including the edge of the ears. Can you see just catching that outside edge? And the top of the head, around the sides of the head. And then let's roll a pale pink strip of fondant. Oops, I've got a little bit of that brown dust stuck in there. Let's push it round the neck. And now let's make a bow. So it's quite chunky is this bit, so you don't have to eat this bit of fondant because there is quite a lot of fondant. So it's kind of like a rounded triangle shape. And we'll just push a line into the top and then a soft line kind of in the middle. And I'm going to push this in place. I'm going to have the bow to one side. And let's try and do the same on the other side. So a rounded triangle, we're pushing an indentation into the top, little line across the middle, and we'll press that so the point meets the other one. Then we want a small piece in the middle. So I've kind of gone for teardrop shapes, the points kind of going in towards the bottom of those two pieces. Let's put a couple of little crease lines on there. Now I think I want to go a little bit darker still. So I've swapped to a black edible food dust, and I'm going to concentrate now around the mouth and nose area. And to get a darker colour on the nose, I'm actually going to mix the black powder with a little bit of dip-in solution to create a paint, and then we'll paint that on the nose. And I've got a bit of blue powder now that we're going to go over fondant that's on my board so that the background colour looks a little bit different to the colour of my dog that looks a bit like a cat. Add a little bit of pink to the bow if you want. If it's looking a bit flat colour-wise, do you know what? I'm going to go a little bit darker. And there we go. There it is all finished. My little Frenchy face / slightly cat face. I hope you've enjoyed the video. Thank you for watching. If you liked the video, be sure to hit the thumbs up button and leave me a comment below. You can see more of my tutorials by clicking on the images on screen now. If you haven't already, make sure you click the subscribe button to stay up to date with my future tutorials. There are also links in the description box below where you can find me on Facebook, Instagram, and more.